I just made up my mind to kind of do something with this. I just drew a box. This is in Pro 2014. I don't know what you have, but the terrain tools are pretty much the same in all of the Home Designer titles currently. We'll do an overview of this. There's no terrain currently. It's just a box with a hip, excuse me, a hip roof on it. And we'll create a terrain plane. Voila. That's your basic flat terrain plane. Now your house is going to be underground, so I'm going to go back to plan view. I hit Control Tab on the keyboard to go back to plan. Now I left that camera still open. All right. So I'm going to go over here to the Build Roof dialog and turn off Auto Rebuild Roofs because I don't want roofs for this sort of thing. Now in Pro I can just select and delete these. If you have something else other than Pro, you'd have to open the dialog box for the space and go to the Structure tab and tell it not to have a roof. Well, I'm trying to just tell it to have a ceiling. It's kind of difficult. Well, fiddlesticks. Okay, we'll leave that there. But I turned off auto roof, so now we've got basically a flat thing. Now you'd have to figure out how thick the ceiling is supposed to be to hold up dirt, if that's what your intention is. So let's look at some of the basics on terrain. Let's say your house is all perfect, and now you're going to do, and I recommend you do the house first, and then we'll do the terrain. So I'm going to take this terrain, and I was mentioning in my post that the key thing is to uncheck auto-calculate elevation. Now, how the software auto-calculates, I have no idea. I'm not a programmer. But I do know how this works. You uncheck auto-calculate, and then let's just set it for whatever reason, to 20 inches. We'll set it to 0. And you'll notice the 0 puts it at the 0 of the first floor. Let's remove the wall here so you can, I'm using this delete surface tool, by the way. So 0 for the terrain is just, well, apparently just below the 0 of the house. So if you want to cover up the house, you just open up the terrain, and let's see, it's probably got a 9-foot ceiling. We'll set it to 108 inches, and you can see that it'll goes down. So it has to be a minus value for it to go up. That's just the way they programmed it. You know, does it make sense? No. They had to figure out some way to program it, so that's what they did. So if you want the house completely underground, we'll open this up and add, we'll make it minus 110. No, I can still see the house. Oh, I know what's wrong. In the terrain specification dialog, right here, hide terrain intersected by building. I'm going to uncheck that. There we go. Now our house is, quote, unquote, underground. How underground it is, you can really calculate this closely in an elevation camera. Let's see. I'm going to, again, use this delete surface tool. Well, I've got it just about perfect. We got just about an inch of soil over the top. Let's say you want, I don't know exactly what you want to do, but let's say you want the ground to cover the entire house, but not this end here. I just said a guess. This is what I mean by learning the terrain tools. I'm going to go to the elevation data and make a elevation region up here. We'll set that at 0. I think that's what it, yeah, it came in at 0 inches elevation. We'll leave it there. Now, for an abrupt change in terrain, you're going to need to use this terrain break. Okay? But first, we need to establish the lower point. You have to have at least 2 data to modulate terrain properly. So I'll go back to terrain and elevation data, and we'll do another region. I'm just going to keep this simple. I'm going to draw another one right here. And I'm going to set this one here, open this dialog, set it to minus 110 inches. I'm just guessing. I don't do math in my head that quickly. I want this to modulate all of this area here. These regions will be causative over the areas inside their perimeter. Now let's take a look at this result here. Okay, you can see from flat region to flat region, the software computes a gradient angle, and we need something a little more severe. Now these little green things in there, they're just on a layer called terrain, excuse me, primary, contour, second. I don't care about that. I'm going to turn those off. It just clutters up the screen from my point of view. Now we'll go to terrain, elevation data, terrain break. This is where you want, I selected that tool and then I'm going to left click drag right across the front of the house, and we'll open that up. And it computed automatically that you need a 10-foot change. We'll see how that works out. Okay, that's, man, worked out pretty good. You probably have to have a retaining wall or something like that, but you get the idea. If you want to modulate this back, then you just grab the flat region, pull it back. Well, it didn't change. Okay. All right. Let me pull it back some more. Trying to get a little bit of a gradient in there. Well, I'd probably have to move this datum here. Okay. You see how that works? It's very machine-like and very computer-like. It just does what it does, follows orders. And this flat region here, I guess if we want to modulate that out, maybe we'll move the bottom a little bit. No. Let's see, what is this? Let's make that minus 120. Excuse me. And go over to terrain, elevation data, line, and put a line here and set this at 110 minus 110. Whoops, I used a plus sign. Okay, now you can see a little bit of a gradient in there. So the terrain just follows commands. The whole software program just follows settings and commands. It doesn't do anything else. It doesn't think. It doesn't judge. It just follows commands, and so it's incumbent upon you to learn. That's what I was talking about, learning the tools and experimenting like this. So when you do something, you get a result. See where it goes. It computed a gradient from that terrain break to where I put the line at 110, and then it got flat at 120, minus 120. So this, to review, this is minus 120. This one here is minus 110, and this one here is 10 feet relative to this flat region, which is 0, and that's how I arrived at that. So if you want the whole house covered up, that's one way to do it. If you want, I don't know exactly what you want to do, but you build the house, and then you modulate the terrain and set the terrain to the model. And hopefully this video will make it a little more real to you exactly what I meant. Yeah, put a window or two in there, and then a door. Voila. Now, in terms of the engineering on this, that's what I meant by study this type of architecture. You want to also run this by an engineer so that once it's built, that water won't run into it and the roof won't cave in and that sort of thing. That's what I mean by studying this kind of architecture. And you really should have a structural engineer review your plans and have him call out, the thickness. Oh, I see there's some terrain inside. Let's take a look at that. That's kind of a collateral thing. Let's look in here. Yeah, you can see the terrain coming in this way. It looked like I saw terrain. See, I unchecked. Let me check that again. We'll do it from inside here, inside the building. Well, I don't see the terrain inside. I'm just seeing it outside. I don't know what I'm seeing there. Oh, I bet I know. Well, this you're just going to have to deal with. For this kind of, this tool is not really designed for this kind of architecture. So it's not going to be perfect. I mean, it works pretty well in terms of you can see inside to out and not see the terrain. But outside to in, apparently there's terrain there. And if you use the delete tool on that, it deletes the whole thing. So it's not, there's some of this, you're just going to have some of this anomalous behavior here. You're just going to have to deal with a little suspension of disbelief, and but it'll properly it'll represent what you want to do to building professionals, and I think that's what the entire purpose of this software is. And I hope this is helpful to you and anyone else interested in this sort of thing. Thank you.